It's Utalk Radio, online at utalkradio.com.
Kati here, and we are at the SAMSHA Voice Awards, and I am on the blue carpet with Amy, and you're a recipient of one of the awards tonight, correct?
That's right.
So tell us what award you're up for.
So I'm here for the Consumer Award, and I am just so thrilled. It's really as a result of my own living in recovery with bipolar disorder and for my advocacy work that I do now.
So what advocacy work do you do? And you said you struggle with bipolar. So did you have to hit like a low point and then you discovered you needed help and that's when you got into advocacy work, or how did all of that come about?
That's a great question. I struggled with bipolar disorder for several years, but a crisis came about 6 years ago, and I had a manic and a psychotic episode. I thought my family was trying to poison me. So I got in my car and I drove about 2,000 miles across the country. And I got off an exit in Montana just randomly, didn't really know what I was thinking. And I went to the top of the mountain, and there was a house there, and I thought it was mine, and that my friends were waiting in the basement to give me a birthday party. So that was what was going through my head at that time. So I go in the house, I make some coffee, I do my thing, and then I decide to go on up the road. And I went up the road looking for supplies for the winter. And I took an exit and got off and got lost in the Idaho National Forest. And I wandered around for about 3 days, and then finally I was rescued. And I got taken to a psychiatric hospital in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And a nurse there gave us a presentation on bipolar disorder. And she said, "You have bipolar disorder, it's a brain disorder, and it's not your fault." And in that moment, all the shame that I was carrying just got erased, like overnight. And after I got released from the hospital, I ended up getting arrested for going into that person's home. So I got taken back to Montana, and I spent about 3 weeks in jail. And while I was in jail, I wrote in a journal every day. And one of the things I said was I was going to recover, and I was going to go reach back and help as many people as I could so that no one would have to go through what I did.
That's an amazing story, and we're so glad that you did recover. And, now you're helping people with that. And that's just, I couldn't even imagine that, going into people's houses and you didn't know who they were and thinking people were attacking you. And you said that the nurse told you had bipolar. Did you have any suspicions that you had anything wrong, or did you just think like everyone else was crazy? And did you know what bipolar was before you were diagnosed?
Well, I had been diagnosed several years before that had happened, and I kind of did what typically happens with people, on again, off again with medications, really hoping and wishing that it would just go away and I wouldn't have anything to worry about. But I've since learned that it's an illness. It doesn't go away, just like diabetes doesn't go away. It's just something that I had to learn how to manage. And I had been an advocate really for many, many years because my mother and one of my sisters also has bipolar disorder. So it wasn't because I wasn't aware. It was really more that I was stuck in this self-stigma mode where I felt ashamed. I didn't want to be put in a box of people who had mental illness because people were discriminated against and there's a lot of prejudice. And then I really came to realize that it's really more empowering just to own whatever the challenge is and to be authentic in that. And the way that I look at bipolar disorder is I call it my biggest competitor because I'm an Olympic athlete. And recently I wrote a book called Bipolar Disorder, My Biggest Competitor, An Olympian's Journey with Mental Illness. And I call it my biggest competitor because even though I was on a world stage with incredible competition, nothing challenged me more than bipolar disorder. And I really set out to learn how to manage it so I could beat it. And that's what I do today.
That's amazing. So just looking at life as a competition, and any problem you have is a competition, and that's how you overcame it and you battled with it. Wow, that's such a cool way to look at it, because it's like you're not looking at it as, I have this disease and I am this disease. No, you're not that disease. This is something you will battle with, but you fight it, and that's just great to see that. So would you say if you're living with it and you're kind of in denial, like just take that step and just realize it's not your fault and you need to just just face it? Basically, is that what you would say to someone that has that problem? Just face it and deal with it, because you're not going to get any better if you don't?
Well, I would say that if you feel like you're experiencing signs or symptoms of a mental health condition, go on mentalhealthamerica.net and do a mental health screen. They've got screens for depression, PTSD, bipolar disorder, and you'll put in information. It'll ask you a bunch of questions, put in information, and then it will give you kind of what they think needs to happen next, which is if you need additional help, they'll encourage you to get appropriate professional help. So I'd always start with that mental health screen. And then if you feel like you need help, you can always start with your primary care doctor and go in and talk about the symptoms that you're experiencing that's affecting your thinking, emotions, and behavior. And that's the key point.
Is just get help. Yeah, you face it, you get help. You, like you said, you can look at it as a challenge and it's something to beat and you're going to win it every time. Now, you said you're an Olympic athlete. What sport did you compete in?
I played a sport called team handball. It's essentially European handball. And so if you imagine water polo on a gym court without the water, that's what team handball is. 6 court players and a goalie on each team. And the scores are generally in the 20s. And 1 point for each goal. And it's the second most popular sport in Europe. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So did you play on a European team, or is there an American team for that?
I played on the the national team in the United States, and then on the Olympic team in Seoul, Korea.
Okay, very cool. Now, you're an athlete. You're with athletes a lot. Is this is mental health and addiction or depression, anything like that, is that popular among athletes? Is that something they struggle with, even if they may not want to admit they struggle with it? Is that like a big thing amongst like professional athletes and anyone in a competitive sport like that? I would think it would be. But.
Well, really the statistics are 1 in 5, and 1 in 5 doesn't discriminate whether you're an athlete or whether you're not. And the thing that makes it hard for athletes, though, is that we're taught in our mind to be strong and that we can overcome just about anything. We still kind of go with that same philosophy of no pain, no gain. And so asking for a physical if you break something or sprain an ankle and you say, I need to be taped up, but I can't really play, that's hard sometimes for coaches. Yeah. Come to them and say, I'm really depressed, I'm feeling unmotivated, and I'm having suicidal thoughts. That's a whole different ball of wax. So there's a cultural difference when it comes to the sports world that makes it a little bit more challenging.
Well, we thank you for what you're doing and your book. Tell us a little bit more about your book. You said that came out of your experiences, and then is there certain people you're targeting with it, or is it just kind of for everybody? You feel everybody can benefit from it, or just people with bipolar?
I think anyone who has a mental health condition can benefit, and people who are interested or have family members who have mental health condition. It's available on Amazon. And you can get a Kindle download, or you can also buy a print copy. I'm really targeting, and I always think about this, even when I give talks or do speaking engagements, I always think about the one person who that book or that talk needed to help. So if there's one person listening out there right now who goes and picks up that book and it helps them, then that's the goal.
Yeah, that's great. Just one person, because you never know who that person's going to help and then who that person's going to help, and it's the ripple effect of just one person can make a difference.
Absolutely. That's the key. And it's like a domino then.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you, Amy. Thank you for being on Utalk and for what you're doing. And congratulations on your award. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Utalk Radio with Steve, Larissa, and Katie. On the web at utalkradio.com.